Well, hey, everybody. A Seattle woman was abducted, assaulted, and locked away in a makeshift cinder block prison cell. I want to know if the captor was a brilliant serial predator or was he a disorganized, fantasy-driven pervert? Hey, well, thanks for joining us here at Profiling Evil. I don't want to underestimate the horror of this case in any way, shape, or form. This victim didn't deserve to be a victim. This has nothing to do with what brought the predator and the victim together, but it does have everything to do with risk reduction and offender organization. But it does have everything to do with risk reduction and offender organization, or as I'm going to lay out in this video, disorganization. So I hope you'll take a moment and hit that like and subscribe button, folks, and ring the bell so that you're getting all of our videos as they're released. And just keep in mind, when you ring that bell, when you hit those notifications, you end up being one of the first to know when we release something. Well, this woman, who hopefully will remain unnamed, I guess until the trial, was abducted on July 15th, just after midnight in downtown Seattle, Washington. She was working as a sex trade worker. The predator was a John, and as soon as they completed this physical transaction, he, Negasi Zuberi, announced that he was a police officer, which is a lie, and that he was placing the victim under arrest for solicitation. He brandished a stun gun to ensure her compliance, something that she agreed to do. You know, early in my career, I worked vice for a short period of time. And when engaging sex trade workers, I just want to point out police officers can gather the needed evidence without having to have sex with the suspect. So, I don't know, that should have been a little bit of a tip, but I don't know what this and how it really matters in this case. But I wanted to make sure that you understand that police officers are not required to go out and have sex with sex trade workers in order to effect an arrest. But here's what really does matter in this case. Once these two had completed this physical transaction, Zuberi announces that he's a police officer, and according to reports, brandishes a stun gun in order to gain the victim's compliance. It was also reported that he displayed a badge to support his claims. Now, it only takes a second for anybody to go online and order police paraphernalia. I don't want you to do it. I don't want you to take all this as a training video, but you can get online to do things that can be used in deceptive ways, especially in the dark and when people are under stress. Here we're looking at some Amazon police badge purchases just to kind of point that out. But now back to this case. Zuberi places this victim in handcuffs and leg shackles, and then he places her in the back of his vehicle. You know, I'm always intrigued by what the predator does to gain control of his victims. It's usually either a blitz-style attack, where they just come on full blast, hard hitting, and just shock the person to gain control, or they gain control through deception, a guise. And that's exactly what Zuberi did to gain control over this woman. He announced that he's a police officer, and he told her that she was under arrest. Zuberi then transports the victim for hours across state lines from the state of Washington and into the state of Oregon. Now, that entire trip lasted almost 8 hours. And during that time, the predator pulled off the side of the road on at least one occasion and sexually assaulted the victim another time. Now, I plotted out the most probable route that he would have taken in order to get from Seattle to Klamath Falls. If the initial assault occurred around midnight in Seattle, that would mean Zuberi would be pulling into his residence at about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, depending on how long that roadside assault lasted. Now, once in his home, he locked her in a makeshift prison, something that he'd crafted on his own. And this is where the disorganization, in my opinion, starts to come in. Soon, this victim realizes that she's going to either attempt escape or face additional kinds of assaults, including the possibility that she might be killed by her captor. So with that in mind, she begins to pound, pull, scratch, and tear at the enclosure until she's able to get the door open just wide enough to escape. Now, once outside of the prison cell, she looks inside the predator's vehicle and she discovers a handgun, which she takes, and then she flees the property, climbing over a fence and flagging down the first person that she can see. Imagine the surprise of that good Samaritan who ended up calling police. All of a sudden, this disheveled woman brandishing a firearm appears in the roadway asking for help. You know, it makes me wonder if other people may have driven past her rather than stopping immediately to render aid. And by the way, I just want to bring this out, since all I talk about is risk reduction on Profiling Evil. My recommendation, if you're ever in this position as someone that's going to be a good Samaritan, not the victim, and I hope you never are, but if you see somebody packing a gun and trying to stop you on a roadway, hit the gas and go around them, but get to where you can observe the person safely while you make a 911 call to police. The woman, once police arrived, was taken to a nearby hospital where she was physically and forensically examined. Police took her statement and they started building their case for a search warrant on this thing. And incidentally, the suspect in the case, upon discovering that the victim escaped, fled the area with his wife and one child. Now, I don't know anything about the other children, but he didn't leave with them, only with one, which really is interesting to me. I think he had at least one other child. Now, a day later, Negasi Zuberi is arrested in a store parking lot in Reno, Nevada. When police surround his vehicle, he reportedly kept his child inside the vehicle as he attempted to destroy evidence, including trying to destroy his mobile phone. I don't know that you could really classify it that he was keeping his child as a hostage, although it could possibly be another charge down the road. His wife apparently was outside of the vehicle, and as more information pours in, we're learning more about their dysfunctional relationship. Well, I spoke with Brian Enton on News Nation about this case, and I shared some thoughts on the arrest, the victim selection process that Zuberi went through, and feelings I had about the structure that this predator built. Let's listen to this.
This next story, I mean, oh my gosh, what this woman went through. A violent sex offender, that is what the FBI is calling a man arrested July 16th after allegedly kidnapping and holding a woman prisoner in a cinder block cell that he built inside his garage in Oregon. And there is that cell right there. His name is Negasi Zuberi, though he's also gone by several different aliases: Justin Kouassi, Justin Hycheor, and Sakima. And so far, he's been charged with just one count of interstate kidnapping, though that could definitely change. It seems like they're building a case on this guy. Authorities say he is linked to at least 4 more sexual assault cases across 4 different states. He was busted after a sex worker he allegedly picked up more than 450 miles from his home managed to break free from that cinder block cell, a cell with a metal door that only opened from the outside with what looks like just a chair and a light inside. Police say his victim banged so hard on that door that her hands were bloody, but she was eventually able to free herself, to break free from that chamber and flag down a passing driver. Can you imagine? After authorities raided Zuberi's home, they not only found the cell, but handwritten notes describing a disturbing plot for what he called Operation Takeover. One reads, "Leave phone at home, make sure they don't have a bunch of people in their life. You don't want any type of investigation." Another reads, "Dig a hole straight down 100 feet and list materials to build what could be a possible dungeon. Concrete block, rubber coat, foam insulation, and waterproof concrete." I mean, people like this live among us. It is truly just disturbing stuff, literally like a horror movie. Here's what Special Agent Stephanie Shark said about it today.
Although law enforcement daily combats violence and tragedy, some cases alarm even the most seasoned investigators, particularly when shocking details are revealed When police responded to a 911 call in Klamath Falls, Oregon on July 15th, they discovered a makeshift cinder block cell with a metal door and a singular light bulb above for light in a residential garage, and a woman who bravely escaped her terrifying circumstances. Sadly, we believe there are more victims, as well as persons out there who might have vital information relevant to our ongoing investigation.
Gosh, I just hope that woman is doing okay tonight. I want to bring in Mike King. He is a retired homicide detective with 28 years law enforcement experience and host of the podcast Profiling Evil. Mike, thank you for being with me. One of the things I found most alarming about this, besides that picture and all the details, is when they arrested this man, they say that he was holding one of his kids and that his wife was also with him. So apparently, like, this guy had a family while he was doing all of this.
You know, we've seen it over and over again, haven't we, Brian, where these people are living these dual lives, this public life of where they go to work, this private life that maybe the family, the wife knows about, and then this secret side where they're predatory and they're committing horrendous crimes like this one. And so it's going to be interesting to see what the response is, how much they really understood what was going on. How could you not live in that house and know that there's a bunker being built in the garage? That's a challenge.
When you heard the FBI agent there say that they believe there are likely more victims out there, are these just women who were also sex workers that perhaps got away, maybe afraid to come forward now because of the nature of the job they were doing? Or what do you think the FBI meant?
Well, you know, I always looked as an investigator at the victimology first and foremost. Why did these people become victims? And what is it that really motivates that offender to select them? Is it the ability to get them away from a normal setting, to get them to a place that most people wouldn't go to in order to do what they do? Or is it they're really focused on a specific kind of thing, maybe for some in their whacked out mind reason to clear the streets of problematic people, or in other places, just let me find someone who isn't going to be found and not going to be discovered. And we kind of see this in his manifestos, don't we, where he's indicating find somebody that doesn't have a support system behind them.
It's so sick that they go after these sex workers. We've seen it all over the country because they think that they just don't even matter. Which is obviously so wrong. But,
you know, we then talked a little bit about the prison cell and the level of this predator's criminal organization. You know, when looking at crimes against people, I always consider the risk level that the offender is willing to assume in order to commit the crime. And in this case, the victim's going to be able to testify as to what Zuberi's behavior was throughout the entire crime event. She's going to be able to identify him. She saw his face. She was right there. And because there were no masks involved, she's going to be able to point out or even perhaps told police about identifying kinds of intimate markings on his physique, mannerisms that he may have had, or unique things that he might have said. She might even be able to testify as to whether he threatened her with death during this investigation or during this abduction. Now, Zuberi took an incredible amount of risk, a risk of being identified and being captured when he approached her on the street without wearing a mask. Again, that was all part of his guise, and it all lends toward his disorganization if he was going to take this person and keep them for some extended time, unless his intent was to murder them and get rid of this witness, so to speak. So that makes me wonder, in reality, if he would have executed her once he was finished with whatever fantasy he was acting out. And frankly, I want to know what you think about this scenario that I've painted here, folks. Do you think this is extreme of abducting, assaulting, and confining his victim was his first event, his first time at being a criminal? Now, we know that he's being looked at in other areas, and so that kind of answers the question. But I'm going to be looking for your comments down below about the behaviors that were exhibited and whether that's an indication of a new first-timer in crime or someone who has done this before. The analysis of the offender's risk level can really help us and lead to a clearer identification of the criminal, and it can increase the chances of apprehension. Now, in this particular case, I think that understanding the offender's disorganization might help us also understand more about him.
But back to that picture with the cinder block cell in the garage. I mean, if this guy has a family, I mean, didn't someone say, like, why is he building a cell in the garage? Like, do you think anybody knew what was going on?
They're such chameleons, and it's really going to be interesting to find out, why is this guy traveling all over the country? Why does making a 400-mile trip to Seattle seem to fit in his daily routine? He could have convinced people he was doing a little cellar to store wine, or he could have been building a home office or a place to store his guns. But when you look at it, it's really pretty poor workmanship. I mean, a stick inside wall, and those cinder blocks, to me, Brian, don't even look like they've been cemented together, that they're just kind of stacked on each other. So it really makes you think about the organization level of this offender too. They had lots of fantasy. He has lots of fantasy going on in his mind, but he doesn't have the know-how to put it together.
Yeah, it's a good point. And the fact, thank goodness she was able to, I mean, she had bloody hands. She was able to bang her way out of that room, which thank God. But you make a good point. I mean, it looks like a cell, but it doesn't seem like the best construction if she was able to just bang herself out. Again, thank goodness it wasn't the best construction. A lot of people on social media I've seen today have been speculating about what this guy may have done for a living, interstate, highways. People were speculating maybe like a truck driver. Do we know anything more about him?
I haven't been able to find anything, and I've been mapping out every resident that he's had in the last 5-10 years. And this guy's all across the country. So is he a guy who's going out and selling door to door in different neighborhoods? Or is he, like you've just said, a truck driver? And, we have this mentality in law enforcement that when an event happens, we often think, okay, who done it, and are they right in my neighborhood, rather than thinking of a predator who could be very transient and coming in and out. This map we're looking at, I think, really points out those locations kind of highlighted in red, showing this different states this guy's been living in.
Yeah, very interesting. Like all across the country, you have to wonder what his history is. And by the way, if it wasn't disturbing enough, he apparently posed as an undercover officer when he tased the victim and kidnapped her. So he was apparently pretending to be a police officer initially. Really disturbing stuff. We're going to stay on this one. And clearly there's likely more victims out there, like the FBI said. Mike King, thank you so much for coming on with us tonight. Hope you have a good night. Good to see you too.
Well, as I said on News Nation, I've mapped out all the locations where this accused predator traveled and all the locations that he's lived. Now, I did this for two reasons. One is to show how transient some of these predators can be. The question becomes, are they moving constantly because they have traveling employment, or is it because they're running from things? On this map that we're looking at, I've identified 11 states where he's lived, including Washington, where the assault and the abduction occurred. And at one point, he lived very close to the southern border of Washington, northern border of Oregon. Now, these locations go back to the year 2014 and beyond. And I'm going to show you this little 3D map I created where we can travel with Zuberi from each location and each home he lived in. I think it's pretty phenomenal to look at the amount of travel he did. I used our affiliate Truthfinder to get information about this. So folks, I'd encourage you to check out Truthfinder on the link below, or use that QR code that's appearing on the screen to take advantage of some special Profiling Evil pricing with Truthfinder. You're going to get a discount. And frankly, trying them out and signing up is free. And if you keep the subscription, great. If you back away, you can get out at any time with no penalties. And by the way, they're an affiliate. That means we're going to get a small commission, maybe enough to buy a Coke or something. But let's look at this map and this guy's travels. First, we're going to start out in Illinois. This is pre-2014 in Lamont, Illinois. Then we're going to move from that residence to his next residence pre-2014 in Oakland, California. pretty big jump across the country. Then we're going to go to another address in Oakland, California, where he then lives a little longer. Again, this is all pre-2014. He then moves to Northport, Alabama, and from Northport, Alabama, he moves to Orlando, Florida. Now, again, we're still pre-2014, but he moves from Orlando back to San Leandro, California, and from there he moves to Azusa, California, where he lives for just a short time, and then changes addresses again and goes to Las Vegas, Nevada, and then on to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, then over to the Bronx, New York, and then Chicago, Illinois. I mean, this guy is all over the map. From Chicago, Illinois, he goes back to Las Vegas, then over to Antioch, California, stays in Antioch, goes to a second residence in Antioch, and then he goes to Las Vegas, Nevada again. And then he goes up to Vancouver, Washington. So we got him living in Washington now. Still pre-2014, he then moves to Oregon, where he lives for a while. Then he goes to Klamath Falls, Oregon, Daly City, California, Oakland, California, comes over to my state and goes to St. George, Utah. From there, he travels to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, then makes his way back to the West Coast to Granada Hills, California. Then he heads over to Ecorse, Michigan, back to Oakland, California, over to Northport, Alabama, back to Oakland, California, then over to the east to Chicago, Illinois again, stays in Chicago, bounces to another location in Chicago, then he goes to Northport, Alabama, back to Antioch, California, then to Oakland, California, over to Denver, Colorado in the Rocky Mountains, and then makes his way back to Klamath Falls, Oregon. From there, he goes to Seattle, Washington, and then back to Klamath Falls, where he is living when the crime is committed. I mean, isn't this incredible how much travel this guy has done? Well, this is really mind-boggling when you look at his travels in this particular way, isn't it? In fact, to put his travels into perspective, he would have had to have driven 37,000 miles in the last 20 years just to get from one place of residence to another. Now, that would take 544 hours of drive time. I mean, you got to have an awfully good reason to make that many moves in such a short amount of time. I mean, even members of the military who get randomly deployed don't move that much. So let's put this even in a little more perspective. That driving amount of 37,000 miles is equivalent, if you could do this, to driving 1.5 times around the world. Incredible. And keep in mind, this accused predator was traveling over 400 miles one way in order to assault and abduct the victim in this case alone. Now, if that's normal behavior for this predator, perhaps behavior as a way to avoid police scrutiny, imagine the area of the United States where this predator could have accessed prior victims. In fact, to even put this into perspective, I created a map that shows a conservative 300-mile drive time radius around each location where Zuberi has lived. As you look at this, can you see the landmass where the potential victims are that this predator could have taken advantage of? It is absolutely mind-blowing and gives us some understanding of why capturing somebody like this is so darn difficult. Now, some people have asked if this guy was on FBI radar. He wasn't on FBI radar. These would have been localized crimes that were occurring. And by moving so much, it's really likely that he wasn't on anyone's radar until he was finally captured recently. Now, when Zuberi was arrested on July 16th in Reno, Nevada, Again, remember, he barricaded himself in his vehicle for 45 minutes while police were negotiating with him. During that time, this courageous human being was holding his son hostage while he attempted to destroy his phone, and then he began cutting himself with a sharp object. Once police started searching his home, they discovered a makeshift prison cell and a number of handwritten notes that give us a little deeper insight into this guy's planning and motivation. One of the notes was titled Operation Takeover, and it included a list of reminders or instruction for the guy. One entry said, "Leave phone at home." Now, this gives us a little insight into the organizational level and a little better understanding of how police use forensics in investigations, cellular forensics. He knew about this and was trying to avoid getting captured in this way. Another notation was much more chilling, and that was when the alleged predator penned a reminder that said, quote, "Make sure they don't have a bunch of people in their life. You don't want any type of investigation." And then he closes his quotation there. This clearly was a reference to the victim selection process and this predator's desire to choose a victim that likely wouldn't be missed if she disappeared. Now, another handwritten document included a blueprint for an underground holding cell made up of concrete blocks, foam insulation, and waterproof concrete. With Zuberi in custody, police are now tackling the job of trying to figure out where he might have committed other crimes. They're asking all of us, anyone with information about this guy, to reach out to them. Now, chances are his reach, as we kind of exemplified in that map showing the 300-mile buffer around each address, is pretty dang staggering. So please, folks, if you know anything about this guy, please reach out to the Klamath Falls, Oregon Police Department or to your local FBI field office. And since I'm asking you to do things, please make sure you're hitting the like and subscribe button and that you're ringing the bell so you're getting our notifications on videos just like this one.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Stephanie Shark. I'm an assistant special agent in charge in FBI Portland. I am joined today by Assistant United States Attorney Nathan Levarchik, Klamath Falls Police Captain Rob Reynolds, and John Casalino, Assistant Attorney General for the Oregon Department of Justice. Although law enforcement daily combats violence and tragedy, some cases alarm even the most seasoned investigators, particularly when shocking details are revealed and we see that there may be multiple unknown victims. The case we are here to announce today, uncovered in Klamath Falls, Oregon, is that kind of case. And while the alleged perpetrator is already in federal custody, the disturbing evidence uncovered to date points to an individual's ongoing and escalating pattern of violence targeting women in multiple states throughout the country. When police responded to a 911 call in Klamath Falls, Oregon on July 15th, they discovered a makeshift cinder block cell with a metal door and a singular light bulb above for light in a residential garage, and a woman who bravely escaped her terrifying circumstances. Sadly, we believe there are more victims, as well as persons out there who might have vital information relevant to our ongoing investigation. We are seeking the public's assistance to help us spread the word about this case in the hopes of reaching all of those people. Let me tell you more about our subject. 29-year-old Negasi Zuberi is also known by several aliases. One is Sakima, another is Justin Hycheor, and another Justin Kouassi. He is currently in federal custody for alleged interstate kidnapping after a Seattle woman escaped his home in Klamath Falls, more than 450 miles away from where she initially met him. Thereafter, she alleges she was kidnapped, shackled, sexually assaulted, and locked in this makeshift cell. According to the complaint, the woman fought for her life, beating the doors and the walls of this cell with bloodied hands. Through her perseverance, she broke free and waved down a passing motorist, asking for their help to call 911. The victim's focus, actions, and her will to survive triggered a law enforcement response that may have actually saved many other women from a similar nightmare. The FBI and our partners, to include Oregon State Police, acted quickly and were able to safely track down Mr. Zuberi within hours of his efforts to evade law enforcement. Our partners at the Reno Police Department, Nevada State Police, and Las Vegas FBI safely captured him after a 45-minute standoff in a public parking lot at a major shopping center in Nevada with no injuries to themselves or others. Our investigation has continued vigorously over the past 2 weeks since Zuberi's arrest, extending into multiple states where he resided from August 2016 and to the present. Those states include Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, New York, New Jersey, Alabama, and Florida. To date, Zuberi has been linked to at least 4 sexual assaults in 4 other states. We believe there may be more victims. Victims may know Zuberi by the name Sakima, and it is believed he may have used several different methods to gain control of his victims, to include drugging their drinks and impersonating a law enforcement officer. Today, the FBI has launched a Seeking Victims website to help us identify potential victims. If you believe you or someone you know has been a victim of or has any information about Zuberi, please visit the website fbi.gov/Sakima victims or call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Finally, I want to thank the brave women who fought for their lives to get us where we are here today. Now it is our turn to take their burden and fight for them, any other victims out there, and seek justice.
Remember that you can find Profiling Evil on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course here on YouTube. And please consider checking out Profiling Evil's podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. You know, you can always donate directly to us through profilingevil.com, our webpage, where you can also pick up books and merchandise, or you can donate directly through PayPal, and the links are down below. So we really appreciate all of your financial support and all of your support here at Profiling Evil platform. Your support is really meaningful to us, folks, and it's the only way we're going to keep Profiling Evil going. So thanks again, and we'll see you soon at the next crime scene.